Hello friends, good evening. This is Grace from a Supermodel, and I am here with today's installment of our live discussions. Today, as you've seen, I have titled it The Tsunami of Small Things, because I want us to emphasize on those small things. I really want us today to just zero in on the small things, because they do really make a big difference. The small things affect the big things. And to really sum it up right now, it is to say everything affects everything. We need to pay special attention to everything we do. There is no area of our lives that we could say we can just be flagrantly negligent and then it won't hurt us. Everything you do affects everything else. If you are neglectful, for example, with your health, it is just a matter of time that the trouble from that seeps into your finances, because now you're too sick to work, your medical bills are piling up, you miss opportunities. And so we have to be very, very vigilant that we pay attention to every area of our lives. If you're now neglectful of your family, of your relationships, it affects also, I think it affects your state of mind, and which can affect your work. For example, if you having marital issues, you're having problems at home, and you leave home with a very unhappy heart, well, chances are when you show up at work, you're not ready to give your best. And so when you're not giving your best, your boss is not going to be pleased. Your clients are not going to be pleased if you're a business owner. So either way, your performance is going to be affected from something that not necessarily did not originate from your work, but it's a spillover from a relationship matter. So again, everything affects everything. If you see a rotted piece of apple, for example, it doesn't matter whether the rot started from the head or the bottom. The summary here is that the apple is bad. So wherever it starts, it will eventually, if it's not contained, if you do not take care of that little thing, it will slowly, over a period of time, seep out and negatively infect the other things that you're doing in your life. So we have to be very, very careful. And oftentimes I would say, if you look at someone who will say to you, oh, it's just this little area that I keep slipping up and it's okay, I won't tend to it, chances are that is not true. If you really look diligently into that person's life, you would see that there are other areas as well in which they have the same attitude. In other words, the same mindset that you have. Your mind is not compartmentalized. We want to believe sometimes that we can really compartmentalize and segregate our brains in a certain way. That is not true. And so one very key issue about taking care of the little things is to say, this is one really big takeaway I want us to remember, is the mental training. We are forming habits. And not just the habits that we're doing, we're literally encoding, setting things into our brains, into the way our brains will think and behave, but even more dangerously into our spirit man. Now we have a spirit man who has been trained to believe that excellence is not an urgent matter. That spirit man has been trained to believe that, I don't have to discipline myself in certain things. I can just be very, very lazy about things. I can be neglectful. I can just take things as a calm and just be lukewarm in my performance, and it won't matter. Well, if we keep acting like that and believing that, what happens is that our performance obviously is going to be negatively impacted. But over the long term, we've formed bad habits and we've depressed our minds and our spirit. Now we have a person inside who doesn't really have a lot of self-respect for themselves, because they know that they are not a person of excellence. We have a man or a woman inside, and I like to say that is the real you. If the man or woman inside is not strong and firm, if it's infected, you are really in trouble, because regardless of what you do outside, it will not be good, because the inside is already tainted. So we have to have the right mindset, the right soul training, the right way we think in our spirit, and that happens with those habits, those small things. Those small things. That is why in the Bible, Jesus says to us that if your right eye would cause you to sin, it is better for you that you pluck out that eye. That is better for you to go into glory than to go to hell, because why? If you do not pluck out that one little thing, eventually it would lead everything else astray. Eventually it will cause even the bigger things to be in trouble. It says if your right hand is causing you trouble, it's causing you to sin, it's causing you to do things that you know you ought not to be doing, it is better to sever that hand and to have the rest of your body whole. It is better to change that one little thing, because if you leave it there, it is just a matter of time. It doesn't matter how much you want to justify it, argue, rationalize. It is just a matter of time before those little cracks will get wider and wider and wider. Before you know, the things that you said were important, the big things, have now been infected by the cancer that originated from the small things. So we need to really know that everything affects everything. I cannot willfully, and now I'm not suggesting that I would not make mistakes. That is a whole different thing. The mistake is that in my pursuit of excellence, I didn't reach. Okay, now I see what were my mistakes. What did I learn from here? Then I apply it next time and keep striving for better. That is a different case. It's a different mindset than saying that, oh, it's just this little thing. What would it matter? Well, guess what? It's just a little C a student has in the test, in one test. Before you know it, at the end of the school year, it's affected the grade. If you have this C this first time, you say, oh, it's just English, it doesn't matter. And then before you know, now you have a student who doesn't see the problem that they are in. There's no urgency in their minds to try to fix that. And I bet you that it is not only in English or math. If you go and look at psychology and physics, chances are such a student with such a mindset, they also have a problem there. In other words, again, the way we are thinking is holistic, is whole. It is hard to say, I'm going to intentionally not care about one area of my life and then not have that affect that other areas because I'm thinking a certain way. Now, the beautiful thing though about this principle is that it flips the other way. In other words, if we are doing small things well, over a matter of time, it will also blossom and then also affect the other bigger things. A rising tide lifts all boats. If I'm slowly doing small things, just building good habits, over a period of time, I will look back and see an accumulation of good results. My outcome will be good, and I will see that it will carry over as well to the bigger things, that even though I wasn't intentionally pursuing those things, but I will see that the good habits have affected that as well. For example, if I just take someone, let's say you're not very good at, watching what you eat. You tend to eat things that you know ought to be doing. And so, but in general, you have to tend to your health. Well, let's say you weren't exercising before, you start exercising, you go for a 30-minute walk, a 30-minute swim, a little jog every day or every 4 or 5 days. Before you know, because you begin to create good habits, your mind is being groomed to think and to believe and to act in a better way that will lift you up. Before you realize, you start making better food choices. Why? Because you are in that general mindset of self-improvement. You've decided that you want to do well now, and the small things have begun. You send the improvement. Your spirit is elated about that improvement, and so now you step out and say, okay, good, what if I can change my diet as well? And now when you match the two, you begin to see that maybe if it was weight that you wanted to lose, you begin to lose weight. If you wanted to get fitter, you get to lift, you start getting fitter. If you wanted to lower your cholesterol, you begin to see all those things. I can tell you that personally, before I started getting into fitness and training, after my third child thing, I was really just, for some reason, I just struggled to lose that weight. But I noticed that both the workout and the diet went hand in hand. And the days that I got lazy and I didn't tend to my health, I didn't really work out, I realized that those were the days that I tended to eat what I didn't want to eat. And so I don't know, maybe it's just a general mindset of feeling like you're not stepping up to the plate. And if you're not careful, you can be depressed to the point that you can just throw all caution to the winds and say, you know what, forget it. I already messed up in one area, then I might as well. That daring against it, that is that principle, it will carry over. It's not like you're intentionally trying to sabotage yourself. It is just that you're unknowingly creating habits that you would live. And we are habits. Human beings, we are made up of habits. What we do all the time, what we do every day. And sometimes you find yourself doing a habit, doing something that you had said yesterday you wouldn't do. But why are you doing it? It's not like you're an absent-minded fool. It is simply because you had trained your brain. Your mind had been formulated in a way over a certain period of time that you have some habits that you're doing it almost involuntarily without thinking about. Now, like I said, the good thing is that you can begin to reprogram, begin to rewire your mind, your thinking with good new habits, and then you can see those things improve. I like what Jesus says in Mark chapter 4 verse 31. He says that he was trying to speak about the kingdom of God, and he likened it to a mustard seed. He said a mustard seed is one of the smallest seed before it's planted. But after it's planted and it's grown, it gets to be one of the largest herbs, and its branches are big and wide to the point that now birds can come and take shade under the tree. It started out little. It started out one of the smallest seed, but when it was grown means that growing is a process. It's a process. There is some tending to growth. Something that was grown, something that was sown is not the same thing as something that was growing in the wild. Sown means that someone took the care to put it into the ground, to cultivate it, to pay it attention, to help it flourish. And now that it's grown, look at the big thing that it's become. And now it is not just big in and of itself, like it's a big tree, it's a big herb, but now other people can feed, other birds can come and receive shade and receive cover from the sun, other things can benefit from it. See, that small thing again affecting many things. Now the little seed is not just grown for itself, it's affecting its environment, it's affecting other living organisms in the area in which it's flourished, in the area in which it's grown. So those little things, my friends, are good. And I like to say the encouraging thing about this principle is that it works both ways. So wherever you are, if you've already been doing the small things well, I want to encourage you to continue and to take time to look back and reminisce and say, that is true. This time last month or 6 months ago or last year or even 10 years ago, I was on the wrong track. I was doing that, and it just took a small change. And yes, I have slowly built on that, and I can see the results. I can point to it. It's like a compound interest in finance, right? In finance, when a little bit of capital and the interest rate, the biggest of all those is not even the capital. It is the accumulation that happens over time, because compound interest will multiply for you that original capital. So it's the same thing, that the little capital of good habits that will form, they are being compounded, and they will affect things in a very great way, in a big way for our lives over a period of time. So that little mustard seed that was sowed into the ground, look what it's become. It's become a huge tree now, a huge herb, and other people are feeding. I like to say a good way to know we are really making progress is when our success is not just feeding us. If it's feeding other people, then you know you've really made a change. It's not just your mouth that is being fed. Other mouths are benefiting from the good thing that has happened in your life. That is a good way to gauge it. Who's benefited even in a small way? It doesn't have to be a big thing. But have I influenced? Have I helped anyone even in the smallest way? If I have, that is reason to celebrate, because I can really see outside of myself that this is working, and it encourages me to continue on that path, that small snowflake that starts dropping. It starts from that little one, but if it doesn't stop, before we know, we'll have a huge amount of snow. Let us have a huge amount of good habits that will start from the small things, knowing, understanding that it will certainly accumulate and affect the bigger things in our lives and lift up those boats. And so everything now will be at a higher, more improved, better level, which we want. Now, conversely, unfortunately, if you're on the other side of the spectrum and you haven't been, you have the mindset that little things do not matter, I want to hopefully change your mind today to tell you that they do, in fact, matter. And not only in the small things, they matter in the bigger things. Do not just look again. Go back. You also can do a study. Take inventory. Look back on some of the things, the problems that you're facing today, the things that are really bothering you. You will see that they started maybe a short time ago, a long time ago, but when they started, it was always a small thing. That's why they say things like smoking is a gateway drug, because You can say, oh, let me just take one puff. Before you know, you're taking 2 puffs. Before you know, you're smoking an entire cigarette. Before you know, you're on a packet a day. But it all started on the day you took that first small one. It is always the small things that will either trip us up or build us up over time. It's like a ladder. We either climb the ladder up to progress or we'll climb it all the way down. And that's why, if you've heard me speak before, I've always said that we hardly stagnate. You might think you're stagnated. Not really. You're regressing. Everything, every human being, every living thing, in fact, is either growing or dying. So you sitting there and thinking, oh, well, I'm just where I was yesterday. No, you're not. You've moved back, because you're supposed to be moving forward. And if you're not moving forward, time is leaving you there. And so it's a slow slide backwards. The only thing is that it's not too glaring to you. It's not obvious, but there is a principle of accumulation. Over a period of time, you will see the accumulation of those little excuses, little indisciplines, little rationalizations that will accumulate and be trouble for you. You don't gain 50 pounds overnight. You gain it 1 pound after the other. You don't get broke overnight. You gain it by either not keeping a job or spending out of your britches, spending more than you can afford, spending out of what your purse says you should. A marriage doesn't fall apart in a day. It starts with one quarrel after another, and unforgiveness and miscommunications and things not being settled when they ought to. And then up to the point we have like this, the dam breaks. And then we say, oh, but it didn't happen overnight. It is a small thing. And the small things not only affect themselves, my friends, they affect everything. Everything. Let us remember that there is nothing that is too small for our attention. Now, I'm not saying that everything has the same level of priority. No, that is not true. There's certain things that you ought to prioritize over others. I'm just saying that even as you prioritize, do not completely ignore that which is you consider small, that which is not at your highest level of priority. Right now, if you have a toothache, for example, right? On one tooth, that you're part of your mouth that you probably weren't flossing or brushing well. It's just one tooth hurting, but it's going to impact your entire mouth from eating, won't it? It's going to impact it might give you a headache. That one little thing. It's like the Bible says about the tongue. I said the tongue is a one little member of your body, but it boasts of great things. It's small. It boasts of great things. It's a small fire, but it can cause a huge forest, a conflagration of fire in a forest. It's small. So the small things, my friends, they're always they're impactful. That's why I call them the tsunami of small things. The tsunami of small things, because over a period of time, for as surely as you are alive, and you're either doing that small thing for the good or for the bad, you will see it come to accumulate for you. So my friends, let me encourage you, wherever you are, today is always a good day to change, to make a change. If you're in the wrong direction, if you've not been paying attention to the small things. If you have been, kudos to you. Continue and start looking at other areas as well that you can pick up and make just small but regular. The thing here is regularity, that consistency, the habit of doing the small things well. A lot of times we get frightened when we look at a problem that we want to solve. But a good thing about the small principle is that I don't have to chew it all right now. I can break it down into sizable chunks that I can chew, right? When you go to the restaurant or you cook at home, you don't just stuff that steak in your mouth. You slice it up into small chewable sizes, right? I got this in computer programming. My professor always used to say, break it down into small, manageable algorithms. When you do that, then you can, amalgamate them up later, and then you have a large algorithm. A car, it looks like one compact automobile that is really made up of smaller and smaller and smaller parts. You and I are made up of smaller cells. Our very organs are also broken down into cells. Everything is the small things, my friends, that make the big things. And so if we neglect the small things, we are essentially neglecting not just a big thing, but entirely everything eventually will suffer. And if we pay attention, if we give love and nurturing to the small things, again, eventually we'll rejoice. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you for your presence. Join me again tomorrow for another topic. I haven't really decided, but I bet you it'll be good. I will just stay on the discipline principle along the same route. So maybe tomorrow let's talk a little bit about self-mastery. I think that's really something that we started last year. We talked a little bit about it last summer actually, and I'm going to give you a little bit of that tomorrow. So please join me, and if you have any questions, I'll be very pleased to answer. If not, let your friends know about this video, share, like it, and by God's grace, let's see each other tomorrow, same time. All right, God bless you. Bye for now.